Poor girl gave biker her last 10 for gas. What? 1,200 Hell's Angels discovered, destroyed them. Act 1. The last $10. The desert did not forgive mistakes. It waited for them. Even at dusk, heat clung to the highway like a second skin. The sky was bleeding out from orange into purple, and the light turned everything flat and sharp at the same time. Out here, miles from the nearest town, there was not much to see, just scrub, rock, and a strip of asphalt stretching in both directions until it vanished into haze. At mile marker 312, there was a gas station that looked like it had been forgotten by time. 2 pumps, a metal canopy that rattled when the wind hit it just right, a flickering neon sign that said gas when it worked and GS when it didn't. The attached store was a low, square box with barred windows and a door that dinged when someone came in or out, though there were not many people left to trigger it. On this evening, there was one car at pump 2 and nobody at pump 1. The car had once been green, but had long since faded into something the color of old celery. Rust freckled the wheel wells. There was a dent in the passenger door that someone had covered with a faded sticker of a cartoon skull, smiling too wide. Leaning against the driver's side door was a girl. She was 17, though she carried herself like someone much older. Her hair was dark blonde, pulled into a high ponytail with a stretched-out hair tie that looked close to snapping. She wore a gray hoodie 2 sizes too big, sleeves covering the heels of her hands, and jeans that had frayed into white threads at the knees. Her sneakers were thin and tired, the soles almost smooth. Her name was Cassie Cartwright. Right now, she was counting her life in crumpled bills. She had them spread on the hood in front of her, the metal still warm from the day's heat. $1, another, a 5, a pair of singles. She smoothed each bill with her fingers, staring at them, as if maybe, if she blinked differently, more would appear. 1, 2, 5, 7, 10, $10. Cassie exhaled and dropped her head, letting her forehead rest on the heel of her hand. She had run the numbers in her head 3 times already. $10 was enough for maybe 3 gallons of gas. Less at this remote station, where prices were higher just because they could be. 3 gallons might get her 40, 50 miles if she drove carefully. Not nearly enough to reach Coldwater, which was still close to 200 miles away. $10 was also a cheap dinner and a bottle of water at the store, or the start of a bus ticket from the next town, if she could find a station, and if someone didn't ask for ride, she barely had. It was not both. Behind the smudged glass of the station window, a skinny man in a stained white t-shirt watched her over the top of a magazine. He had the look of someone who had seen everything and cared about almost none of it. He pushed the door open with his foot. The bell above it chimed, weak and tired. "You gonna pump or just stare at it?" he called. Cassie straightened, the bills in her hand again. "I'm figuring it out," she said. "Figure faster. I close at 9. Pump cuts at 8:50 whether you're ready or not." She looked up at the digital price glowing above the pump. It felt like it was staring back. "How much is the minimum?" she asked. 10, the man said. "These old pumps don't like anything less. They freeze up. I'm not resetting it 3 times, 'cause you want to play with $2. Of course, she thought. "Right," she said. "Thanks." He shrugged and went back inside. The bell chimed again. The neon sign buzzed as a letter flickered off, then on, then off. Cassie slid the 10 back into her pocket, as if keeping it closer would slow the decision. She had not meant to end up here. The plan, if it could be called that, had been simple in the way desperate plans usually were. Run, get to Coldwater, find Danny. Everything else would make sense after that. Her parents had died when she was 11. Car wreck, wrong lane, wrong truck, wrong night. There had been a funeral with too many flowers and too many casseroles. People had told her that everything would be all right, that they were in a better place, and as if that phrase did anything but turn pain into something quiet and confusing. After that came the system, foster homes, caseworkers, new schools every year or two, smiles that never reached eyes, rules that multiplied, promises that didn't. There had been good houses, a few, people who tried, people who cared as much as they could within the limits of their own brokenness. But the last one was the kind you tried not to think about after you left. She had called her caseworker 3 times, left messages that started shaky and ended angry. No one came. No one even called back. So, she packed a backpack, took the small roll of bills Danny had once managed to sneak her in an envelope, and left in the middle of the night. She had hitchhiked, caught rides where she could, walked when she couldn't. One man with a dented green sedan had offered to take her as far as he was going anyway. He dropped her here when his car began to sputter and stall. "Sorry, kid," he'd said, checking his watch instead of her face. "I got work in the morning. I can't sit around waiting for a tow that might never come. At least here you got a roof and a phone." He'd left the keys on the dash of the dead car, grabbed his duffel, and flagged a pickup truck that came along 30 minutes later. He hadn't looked back. Now the sedan was hers in every way that didn't matter. A shell with an empty tank and a battery that sounded exhausted when she turned the key. Cassie closed her eyes and pressed her palms flat on the hood, feeling the cooling metal under her skin. "Think," she whispered. "Just think." The desert didn't answer. What broke the silence instead was the low, distant growl of a motorcycle engine. It came from the west, a faint vibration that grew steadily louder until it rolled beneath the canopy like thunder on two wheels. A big bike, black and chrome, with saddlebags at the sides and a small roll of gear strapped to the back. The rider eased off the throttle and glided into the empty space at pump 1. He cut the engine and swung a leg over, boots thudding on the concrete. For a second, he just stood there, rolling his shoulders, as if shaking off a long ride. He took off his helmet. His hair fell to his shoulders, more gray than black. His beard was equally grizzled, cut close around a jaw lined with fatigue. His face was sun-browned and carved with the kind of lines that came from squinting into wind for years. He wore a leather vest over a black t-shirt. On the back of the vest, in red and white rocker patches, were 3 words that made people either stare or look away quickly. Hell's Angels. Under it, in smaller letters, California. On the front, over his heart, was a name patch. Flint. Cassie watched him from across the pumps, hands still in her pocket around the last $10. Flint walked to the pump, grabbed the nozzle, and slid a credit card into the reader. It thought about it for a moment, then spit the card back out with a flat beep. He frowned, tried again, with the same result. "I told you already," the clerk's voice crackled over the small speaker by the pump. "Card machine's dead. Cash or nothing." Flint sighed and reached into his back pocket for his wallet. He flipped it open, and it was empty. He checked a hidden pocket in the vest, then another, nothing. He dug around in his jeans, pulled out some coins, and counted them in his palm. Cassie could see the moment he realized there was not enough. He looked at the far-off horizon, where a weather-beaten sign announced the next town. Bridger, 23 miles on fumes. Cassie had done enough math in the last 24 hours to know that was not going to happen. He stood there for a long moment, the nozzle still in his hand, eyes moving between the pump and the road, as if waiting for an answer that wasn't coming. She knew that feeling. She slid her hand out of her pocket and looked down at the 10. That $10 had 100 uses and only one life. Once she spent it, it was gone. There was no refill, no backup plan. But nostalgia and fear and anger aside, something else lived in her too, something her brother had put there years ago. "You don't get to choose how people treat you," Danny had said, sitting on the worn couch of their first foster home, his arms slung around her shoulders like a shield. "But you do get to choose who you are anyway. That part's yours. Don't let them take it." Flint was a stranger, a big, rough, patched stranger, but he was stuck, and she understood stuck. Cassie walked toward him before she could change her mind. "Hey," she said. Flint turned his head, surprised. It took him a second to recalibrate. From the usual wary, slightly defensive look adults gave each other at lonely gas stations, to the realization that the voice had come from a teenage girl. "Yeah?" he said. She held out the 10. The bills were soft and bent, edges curling. "It's all I've got," she said. "But it'll get you to Bridger." He stared at the money, then at her. There were a lot of responses a man like him could have given. He could have laughed, or brushed her off, or taken it and walked away. He didn't do any of those things. "Kid, I can't take your last $10, he said. "You can," she said calmly. "You just don't want to. You need that more than I do. Not right this second," she said. "Right this second your tank's empty. Right this second you're 23 miles from anywhere. Right this second She gestured at the dead sedan. "I'm exactly as stuck either way." He studied her face carefully now. "How old are you?" he asked. 17. "You out here alone?" She nodded. "Where are you headed?" "Coldwater," she said. What's in cold water? My brother. The word brother came out steady, but just saying it made her chest ache. Flint's eyes softened a fraction. You got a ride? Had, Cassie said. He left when the car gave up. Said I could figure it out from here. Flint glanced at the sedan, then the pumps, then the empty road. That 10, he said slowly. What were you planning to do with it? Eat, she said. Maybe catch a bus somewhere down the line. Maybe, I don't know. It wasn't enough for everything. So now it can be enough for something. Her hand did not tremble. She held the money out like it was nothing and everything at the same time. Flint's jaw worked. He knew what $10 meant when you were running low on everything. He'd been a young man on the road once, sleeping behind buildings and in drainage ditches, counting coins and pretending not to be afraid. He recognized the way she held herself, like if she let her shoulders drop even an inch, she'd collapse. Listen, he said, I'm not taking this and disappearing. You hear me? You don't have a choice, she said with a small, tired smile. There's nowhere else to go. He let out a breath that sounded a little like a laugh and a little like a curse. What's your name? He asked. Cassie. Cassie, he repeated, as if trying the sound on his tongue. Name's Flint. He took the 10 gently from her hand, like it was made of glass. I'm going to pay you back, he said. I don't know when, but I'm going to. You don't have to, she said. I do, he said. Because if I ride away with this and never look over my shoulder, then I'm not the man I've been trying to be for the last 20 years. He slipped the money into the pump, watching the numbers register. As he did, he reached into the inside pocket of his vest and pulled out a folded red bandana worn at the edges. On one corner, someone had stitched a small white patch with a winged skull. He held it out to her. Take this, he said. She frowned. It's a bandana. It's more than that, Flint said. You ever get stuck again and you see someone wearing a jacket like mine? He tapped the Hells Angels patch on his chest. You show them this and tell them Flint gave it to you. You remember that name, Flint? They'll know what it means. What does it mean? She asked. That you helped one of us when you didn't have anything to spare, he said. And that makes you one of ours, whether you asked for it or not. She hesitated, then took the bandana. The cloth was rough but warm from his pocket. You serious? She asked. Dead serious, he said. He finished pumping, capped the tank, and mounted the bike. The engine roared to life, filling the quiet lot with sound. He looked at her one more time. You sure you're going to be okay? He asked over the noise. She nodded. I'll figure it out. Where are you sleeping? He pressed. She jerked her chin toward the car. Here. His hand tightened slightly on the throttle. You got food? She lied. Yeah. He knew she was lying. She knew he knew. They both pretended anyway. You keep that bandana close, he said. Don't sell it. Don't trade it. Don't let anyone take it off you. You understand? Okay, she said. He hesitated 1 second longer, every instinct in him wanting to do more, to stay, to argue, to force the situation into something safer. But he also recognized the way she held herself, the way she needed to be believed when she said, I'll figure it out, even if that belief was borrowed. He nodded once, then rolled the bike forward and pulled out onto the highway. In seconds, he was a trail of red taillights shrinking into the darkening distance. Cassie watched until he was gone. Then she looked at the empty space where her last $10 had been, at the dead car, at the desert stretching endlessly around her. She tucked the bandana into the inner pocket of her hoodie and zipped it. The clerk's voice crackled again over the speaker. You buying gas or what? Not tonight, she said. Then I'm shutting the pumps. Okay. She climbed back into the sedan, shut the door, and locked it. The interior smelled like old coffee and dust. She pulled her legs up, wrapping her arms around her knees, and rested her head against the seat. The sky turned from purple to black. The stars came out in clusters, sharp and cold. Trucks passed on the highway from time to time, their headlights sweeping across the station, but none of them turned in. Her stomach twisted and growled. She pressed her hand there, as if maybe she could calm it. We'll get there, she whispered to herself, to Danny, to no one. Just not yet. At some point, exhaustion beat out hunger. Cassie drifted into an uneasy sleep curled in the back seat of a car that no longer belonged to anyone. The desert kept its watch. Act 2, Thunder at Dawn. Cassie woke to her own breath fogging the car window. Morning light had turned the inside of the sedan into a cold, gray box. Her neck hurt from the angle she'd slept in. Her back felt like someone had replaced her spine with a board. She sat up slowly, rubbing away the smudge of her face from the glass. Outside, the world looked the same and different. Same station, same cracked pavement, but the air had lost the warm weight of the night and settled into something brittle. Her stomach hurt. Now, a long, hollow ache. She checked her backpack. A half-empty bottle of water, the plastic crinkled. A granola bar wrapper with nothing but crumbs. 2 changes of clothes. A cheap prepaid phone with 8% battery and no service out here. A folded photo of her and Danny from when she was 10 and he was 16, both of them grinning with ice cream mustaches. She put the photo back carefully. The store door chimed when she opened it. Inside, the new attendant, mid-20s, bored, with a baseball cap pulled low, looked up from his phone. "Bathroom?" she asked, and nodding. He pointed without speaking. She washed her face in cold water and stared at herself in the mirror. The fluorescent bulb flickered overhead, making her skin look sickly. "You look like hell," she told her reflection softly. The reflection didn't argue. Back outside, something felt off. The stillness had changed. The air had a hum in it, a low vibration that she felt before she heard it. At first, it was just a suggestion, a faint murmur rolling over the distant hills. Then it grew. Engines, many engines, not a single bike or a truck, but a layered chorus of throats and pistons. The sound crawled up her spine. She stepped out from under the canopy and shaded her eyes with her hand, staring west down the highway. At first, there was nothing. Then, the shimmer of heat on the road thickened into shapes. Small, dark, growing. The first line of motorcycles appeared over the rise like a steel wave. 2 by 2 they came, headlights on, engines synchronized in a rumble that made the thin glass of the station windows vibrate. The colors on their backs flashed as they grew closer. Red and white, skull and wings, the unmistakable emblem that made news anchors lean forward and neighbors lower their voices. Hell's Angels. Cassie froze. The convoy didn't slow at first. For a second, she thought they would roar past, just another parade of noise on a road that rarely saw anything interesting. Then the lead bike's turn signal blinked. The whole formation flowed with it. They pulled into the gas station lot in a sweeping arc, splitting into different rows. Bikes filled every space under the canopy, and then some. They parked with practiced precision, front wheels aligned, engines shutting off in a staggered cascade, until the noise collapsed into silence, pressed tight with leftover echo. In that silence, Cassie could hear her own heartbeat. The young attendant stepped outside, eyes wide, knuckles white around his phone. He muttered, already punching numbers on the screen. "Yeah, I'm calling the cops." Cassie stood next to the sedan, hands gripping the top of the door, like a rail on a listing ship. And then she saw him, Flint. He dismounted from the first bike to stop under the canopy. Same vest, same patched name over his heart, same tired eyes. Except now he did not look like a man stranded alone. He looked like a man who had brought an army. He took his helmet off, scanned the lot, and his gaze locked onto her. Relief crossed his face first. Then something else. Something heavier. He started walking toward her. Cassie's first instinct was to step back. The sheer number of bikes, the wall of leather and patched vests, the reputation that clung to that emblem, it all pressed down on her. She remembered Danny once pointing at a news report of a raid on a biker clubhouse. "They're not all like that," he'd said. "Some of them take care of their own." She had never expected to test that theory personally. Flint stopped 3 steps away, careful to keep his hands relaxed and visible. "Morning, Cassie," he said. Her throat was dry. "Hi. You sleep in the car?" he asked. "Yes." "You eat?" "No." A muscle jumped in his jaw. Behind him, more riders were dismounting. A woman in her 40s with silver threaded through her black hair and a patch that read Raven. Tall man with a shaved head and a horseshoe mustache. Iron. A younger guy with messy hair and nervous energy. Skid. Men and women of different ages, different colors, all united by the same colors on their backs. The sort of sight that made people cross the street in town and peek through curtains. "Why are you here?" Cassie asked. "I told you I'd pay you back," Flint said. Her eyes flicked over the sea of bikes. "This seems extra." He almost smiled. Almost. "Yeah," he said. "It got that way." He turned and spoke louder, pitched to Carrie but not to bark. "This is Cassie," he said. "She's the kid I told you about." Raven stepped forward first. Her eyes were sharp, but there was something undeniably kind in them. You're the one who gave him her last 10, she asked. Cassie shifted her weight. It wasn't a big deal. Flint snorted quietly. It was a big deal to me. Skid let out a low whistle. You gave your last $10 to a stranger? He said. You know how many people wouldn't give $10 if they had 10,000? Cassie shrugged. He needed gas. Iron folded his arms. And you didn't? I wasn't going anywhere, she said, nodding at the dead sedan. He was. Raven studied her a moment longer. How long you been on the road? She asked. Cassie thought. It felt like years, but when she traced back the days... 4, she said. 4 days since I left. Left what? Iron asked. She looked at him, then at Flint, then at the ground. Foster home, she said. The last one. Skid's easy expression vanished. Was it bad? Raven asked, her voice quieter now. Cassie swallowed. Her fingers curled into the fabric of her hoodie. Yes, she said. Did you report it? Raven asked. I tried, Cassie said. I called my caseworker 3 times. Left messages. No one came. The riders exchanged glances that were equal, parts anger and grim recognition. So, you ran? Flint said. So, I ran, Cassie echoed. Why Coldwater? Iron asked. You said your brother's there, Cassie nodded. Danny Cartwright. He joined the army when he was 18. Last I heard, he got out, got a job somewhere near Coldwater, was saving up to get me out when I turned 18. I waited. The system kept moving me around. I stopped hearing from him a couple of years ago, but someone told me he came back to the States. So, I'm going to find him. Her voice gathered strength as she said it, like it always did when she talked about Danny. The plan sounded simple when she laid it out. Simple enough to ignore everything she didn't know, like Danny's exact address, or whether he even wanted her showing up. Raven's expression changed as soon as she heard the name, just slightly, a flicker. Flint saw it. You know that name, he said softly. Raven glanced at him, then at Iron, then at the ground. Say it again, Iron said, his voice lower now. Danny Cartwright, Cassie said. Daniel James Cartwright. That's his full... Iron closed his eyes briefly, like someone had punched him. Flint exhaled, a sound that was half curse, half grief. Skid swore under his breath. Cassie scanned their faces, confusion morphing slowly into fear. What? She asked. What? What is it? Raven stepped closer, but not too close. Her voice was careful, as if each word was made of glass. Cassie, she said, your brother rode with us. The world narrowed. What? Cassie repeated. Not as a full-patched member, Flint said. He was Army first, always. But when he got out, he was part of our veteran support network. He helped on runs, charity rides, outreach, spent more time in our clubhouse than he did at home some weeks. He talked about you, Skid added, all the time. Drove us crazy with it, honestly. My kid sister this, my kid sister that. Cassie's grip on the car door tightened until her knuckles went white. If that was true, if they really knew Danny, then where is he? She asked. Raven's eyes shone with something now, regret, pain, the echo of a loss already lived. Cassie, she said, I'm so sorry. Where is he? Cassie repeated, louder. Your brother died, Flint said. The words did not land gently. They hit like a brick. No, Cassie said. He was in an accident, Flint said. 4 months ago, Route 9 outside of Coldwater. A drunk driver crossed into his lane. He didn't make it. No, Cassie said again, because if she kept saying it, maybe the letters would rearrange themselves into something else. She felt the ground tilt faintly under her feet. The desert light seemed too bright, too sharp. Danny would have told me, she said. He would have called. Someone would have called. Your name was on his phone, Raven said. We saw it. Cassie. But there was no number, just the contact name, and a note that said, Little Sister, Foster Care, working on it. He was sending money, Cassie said. He said he would. The social worker told me there was nothing, that he hadn't, that there was no account for me. Iron muttered a curse that the wind almost stole. He was sending it, Iron said. We know. We helped him set it up. Monthly transfers, straight to the state's designated fund on your file. Cassie stared at him. They said there was nothing. Raven's jaw clenched. Then someone lied, she said. Or someone lost it. Either way, you never saw a cent you were supposed to get. Cassie's vision blurred at the edges. He was coming, she whispered. He promised. He said as soon as he had enough saved, he was going to get me out. He said, her voice broke. The sentence dissolved. She backed up until the car door stopped her and then slid down against it, knees hitting the concrete. She hugged her arms around herself, fingers digging into her sleeves. The desert air was suddenly too thick. Somewhere behind the roaring in her ears, she heard boots on pavement. Raven knelt beside her, but did not touch her. "Cassie," Raven said softly. "He was trying. Every extra shift, every overtime, every time we passed a collection for someone else, he was there with a jar for you too. He didn't forget you, not once." "He died," Cassie said, her voice small and stunned. "And I didn't even know." Flint crouched down on her other side. His big hands were open on his knees. "We were at his funeral," he said. "We talked about you, wondered how he was going to get to you. We thought the system was taking care of its half while he took care of his." "The system doesn't even remember my birthday," Cassie said, a bitter laugh scraping out of her chest. "Why would it remember? Me?" She pressed her forehead against her knees and shook. The sobs came silent and violent at first, shoulders jerking, air refusing to move right. The riders stepped back, giving her space. Some looked away, giving her privacy. Others watched, faces tight with a familiar, helpless anger, the kind that came from watching someone realize just how alone they had been for how long. The young attendant, halfway through dialing 911, stopped. He lowered the phone slowly, eyes flicking between the girl on the ground and the ring of bikers around her. Whatever story he'd thought he was seeing, gang converges on remote station, was not the one unfolding. Flint waited until Cassie's breathing shifted from ragged to shaky. "You gave me your last $10, he said quietly, "when you had nothing. You helped a man you didn't know. Now we know you. And we know who your brother was. That changes things." She lifted her head, eyes red and wet. "How?" she asked. "He's still dead." "Yeah," Flint said, "and nothing we do is going to change that, but we can change what happens next." He stood and held out a hand. She didn't take it, not yet, but she looked at it. "We're not leaving you here," he said. "Not on the side of the road, not in some file on some desk." "Why?" she whispered. "Because Danny would have killed us if we did," Skid said, attempting a crooked smile that didn't quite land. "And because you're one of ours now, whether you like it or not." Act 3. What they learned, the sirens arrived 15 minutes later. 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled into the lot, lights flashing in the desert daylight. The deputies stepped out slowly, their hands near their belts but not yet on their weapons. One of them was a broad man in his late 40s with a tan line where his sunglasses usually sat, and a badge that read Davis. The other was younger, still learning how to hide his nerves. Davis took in the scene, the station, the ring of motorcycles, the girl on the ground, the circle of leather vests. "Morning," he said, voice steady. "We got a call about a possible disturbance." Raven stepped forward. "No disturbance," she said. "Just a lot of coffee and not enough manners." Davis's gaze slid to Flint. "You in charge here?" "Depends who's asking," Flint said. "But yeah, for today." "You want to tell me why there are this many Hells Angels at a station that usually sees 5 cars a day?" Davis asked. "Because a kid gave away her last $10, Flint said. "And we're not the kind of people who pretend we didn't see that." Davis blinked. That was not the answer he had expected. He looked at Cassie. "You okay, miss?" She scrubbed at her face with the heel of her hand. "Not really," she said. "But I'm not being kidnapped, if that's what you mean." "You here alone?" he asked. "Yes." "Where are you from?" She gave the name of the county and state. He sighed. He knew it. Everyone in law enforcement within 3 states knew the places where kids got lost in paperwork and bad homes. "How old are you?" Davis asked. 17. "So technically a minor," he said. "Technically," she said. "We called social services already," the younger deputy added. "They're sending someone out." Flint nodded. "That's good," he said. "We've got some questions for them, too." Davis's eyes narrowed slightly. "Such as?" "Such as why her brother's support money never made it to her," Raven said. "Why a dead soldier's last paychecks vanished into a system that left his sister running from a foster home where she was getting hurt." "You a lawyer now?" Davis asked. "No," Raven said. "Just someone who can count to 10 and knows how much it costs to keep a promise." Davis exhaled slowly. He looked tired in a way. That had nothing to do with the day. "Let's step out of the traffic, all right?" he said, gesturing them away from the pumps. There was no traffic, but everyone understood. They moved to the side of the lot, near a patch of gravel. Davis listened as Flint outlined what they knew: Cassie's age, her run from a bad placement, her attempt to call her caseworker, the non-response, her brother's service and death, the money that had been sent, and the money that had never appeared. Cassie spoke when she had to. The words scraped coming out, but they came. Davis's jaw tightened when she described the foster father's hand on her wrist, his voice in her ear, the way she had learned to lock doors and sleep with shoes on. "Did you file a report?" he asked. "I tried," she said. "I called. They put me on hold. They said someone would call me back. No one did." "You ever talk to the police back there?" he asked. "No," she said. "Why not?" She gave him a look that should have been too old for her face. "Because the last time I told an adult something bad was happening," she said, "they told me I was difficult and dramatic and probably misunderstanding. I figured the police were friends with those adults, or at least had lunch with them." Davis grimaced. He had been doing this job long enough to know that, in some places, she was not wrong. "I can put you in protective custody," he said. "Get you back into the system somewhere safer." "No," Cassie said immediately. "That's not really a choice," he said. "It is," Flint said, "because you put her back into that pipeline without fixing what's in it, and you're just sending her from one kind of danger to another." Davis looked at him. "You got a better idea?" "Yeah," Flint said. "We do." Iron stepped forward. "We've got a couple in Bridger," he said. "Dave and Laura. No record. Background checked 6 ways from Sunday. They've fostered before. They've got space, and they're part of our extended network, which means we keep eyes on things. We can set up temporary guardianship," Raven added. "Emergency placement. I know the forms." "You do?" Davis asked. "Used to work in a county office," Raven said, "before I got tired of watching files pile up on desks." Davis considered that. He looked at Cassie. "Do you know these people?" he asked. "No," she said. "Do you want to go with them?" he asked. She looked at the ring of riders, at Flint, who had come back when he didn't have to, at Raven, whose eyes burned with other people's battles, at Skid, who kept fidgeting like he wanted to fix everything and didn't know where to start. She thought of the last foster house, the way the door hinges squeaked, the way her heart hammered whenever her foster father's truck pulled into the driveway. "Yes," she said. "I want that more than I want what I had." Davis rubbed his temples. "You know how this looks, right?" he said to Flint. "You show up with over 100 patched members, surround a kid, and tell me you're the safest option?" "We showed up because we wanted to be seen," Flint said. "If we wanted to hide something, we'd have rolled one bike deep at night. We're not here to take her off your radar. We're here to put her on it and keep her there until someone actually does their job." Davis stared at him for a long moment. Something in what Flint said clicked with the part of him that had once joined this job with more idealism. "Fine," he said. "Here's what we're going to do. Social Services is going to send a worker. We're going to lay all this out. If your people are as clean as you say, and if this kid really wants that, I'll back it, but it's all going to be on paper." "Good," Raven said. "Paper is harder to throw away than a voicemail." They waited. While they waited, the riders did what they did best. They took care of the immediate. Someone brought Cassie a bottle of water and a sandwich wrapped in foil from a cooler on one of the support trucks. Someone else found a spare hoodie in a gear bag and offered it to her when the wind picked up. The bandana Flint had given her stayed tucked inside her hoodie, a small weight over her heart. "You hungry?" Skid asked, sitting down on the curb near her. "Yes," she said, "but my stomach's kind of confused right now." "Yeah," he said, "feel that." "What are you all really?" she asked. "I mean, I know what the news says." He smirked a little. "What does the news say?" "That you're trouble," she said. "Violent. Dangerous." "Some of us have been," he said honestly. "Some still are. We're not Boy Scouts, but that's not all we are either. There's a network for vets, for kids, for people nobody else shows up for. Danny was part of that." "You keep saying his name like it doesn't hurt," she said. Skid's smile faded. "It hurts," he said. "Trust me, but saying it is better than pretending he never existed." The social worker arrived in a dusty sedan an hour later. Her name was Maria Holcomb. She wore a blazer that didn't match the heat and boots that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled into a bun that had loosened on the drive. She carried a folder bulging with forms and a phone that had not stopped buzzing since she stepped out of the car. She took one look at the scene, the bikes, the deputies, the girl, and closed her eyes briefly, like she was bracing for a migraine. "All right," she said. "Who's Cassie?" "I am," Cassie said. Maria stepped closer, scanning her with a practiced eye, thin, tired, eyes lined with the kind of shadows that don't come from lack of sleep alone. "You're a long way from your county," Maria said, "and you're not supposed to be anywhere without informing your caseworker." "I informed her," Cassie said. 3 times. She didn't answer. Maria's shoulders sagged just a little. "What's her name?" Cassie told her. Maria grimaced. "Of course," she muttered under her breath. She asked questions. Cassie answered them, not all of them, but enough. Enough to sketch a rough shape of the last few years. Enough to show where the cracks had been and how she'd fallen through. Flint, Raven, and Iron filled in details about Danny, his service record, his work after, the transfers he'd set up. Maria took notes so fast her pen squeaked on the paper. "So, the money was going into a designated account," Maria said. "But nothing ever reached her placement?" "That's what she says," Davis said. "That's what my records show too," Maria said, flipping through forms. "Her monthly stipend is baseline. No supplements, no notes." "Where did it go?" Raven asked. Maria pinched the bridge of her nose. "If I had to guess, administrative limbo, or misfiled, or someone decided it would be easier to let it roll into the general fund than chase down the paperwork to assign it. Doesn't matter. It's wrong either way." "Can she get it?" Flint asked. "Not easily," Maria said, "but maybe, if we push." "We'll push," Iron said. Maria looked at Cassie. "You want to go back to your county?" she asked. "No," Cassie said. "You understand that's the usual process," Maria said. "Runaways get returned, investigated, reassigned." Cassie's voice was flat. "I understand the usual process is what put me in that house to begin with." Maria looked at Davis, then at the riders, then back at Cassie. "You trust them?" she asked, nodding at Flint and the others. Cassie thought about the $10, about the bandana, about the way they had looked when they heard Danny's name. "More than I trust the people who never came," she said. Maria let out a sigh that sounded like defeat and defiance wrapped together. "Okay," she said, "here's what I can do. I can authorize an emergency out-of-county placement with close monitoring. I can list this couple in Bridger as kinship caregivers if we can prove they were named by your brother in any official capacity. Were they?" Iron nodded. "He put Dave down as an emergency contact on his post-discharge paperwork," he said. "We can get a copy." "That would help," Maria said. "We'll get it," Raven said. "And I can open an internal review of the missing funds," Maria added. "No promises, but it's something." Flint folded his arms. "It's more than she had this morning," he said. Maria met his eyes. For a second, something like reluctant respect passed between two people used to seeing systems fail. "You rode all the way out here for her?" she asked. "We rode all the way out, here for him," Flint said, nodding toward Cassie. "And then we found her." Maria nodded. "I'll start the paperwork." It took hours. Forms filled, calls made, references checked. Dave and Laura, voices over speakerphone, vouched for. Their home described in detail. Maria's laptop balanced on the station counter while she typed madly, occasionally swatting away the clerk's attempts to close up early. Through it all, the riders stayed. At one point, when Cassie stepped away to breathe, she heard someone say quietly behind her, "I can't believe she gave away her last 10. And someone else answer, "That's what's killing me. Not what happened to her, not what they didn't do, the fact that after all that, she still helped a stranger." It was that, more than anything else, that made her throat close. By late afternoon, Maria snapped her folder shut. "All right," she said. "Emergency placement approved, pending a home inspection, which I will do myself tomorrow. Tonight, she goes with Dave and Laura, under my authority and the sheriff's oversight." Davis nodded. "We'll log it," he said. "You'll ride behind them," Maria told Flint. "We were going to," he said. She hesitated. "And thank you," she said, the words sounding like they had to cross a long distance to reach her mouth, "for not just taking her." "We're not ghosts," Raven said. "We're loud for a reason." Maria gave a small, tired smile. I've noticed. Act 4 letters and legacy. They did not take Cassie to Bridger first. They took her to Coldwater. Flint insisted. So did Raven and Iron. Maria relented when she saw the way Cassie's eyes clung to the name every time it was mentioned. If we don't go now, Raven said quietly, it's going to hang over her like a weight. Like maybe he's still out there. Maybe we got the wrong Danny. Better to show her. The drive to Coldwater took 3 hours of 2-lane highway. Cassie rode in Raven's truck, the convoy of bikes spread out behind them, in the mirrors like a moving river of metal and leather. They didn't talk much at first. The road filled the silence. Every time a sign with the town's name appeared, Cassie felt her grip on the seat tighten. Coldwater turned out to be smaller than she'd imagined. One main street, a diner with a neon coffee cup in the window, a hardware store, a faded mural of mountains on the side of a feed store. Raven drove straight through town and out of the other side, up a small hill. At the top of the hill, tucked behind a stand of wind-twisted pines, was a cemetery. Cassie's breath hitched when she saw it. You don't have to, Raven began. I do, Cassie said. They parked near the entrance. The bikes lined the narrow road, kickstands sinking slightly into the soft dirt at the edges. Flint walked ahead, boots crunching on gravel, weaving between headstones with the ease of someone who'd been here before. Cassie followed, the red bandana of phantom weight inside her hoodie. He stopped near the back, in a row of stones that all looked newer than the rest. He stepped aside. The headstone was simple, gray, a small American flag on a metal VA holder stuck into the ground beside it. A coin sat on top of the stone, left by some other visitor, some other time. The name was carved deep. Daniel James, Cartwright, 95, 25. Brother, veteran, family. The word family had been added later, by someone who had cared enough to pay for the extra carving. Cassie sank to her knees without meaning to. Her fingertips traced the grooves of his name, like she could somehow reach through them and touch him. She had imagined this moment 1,000 different ways on long, sleepless nights. Most of those versions had him alive, standing in a doorway, waiting at a bus stop, leaning against a car at the edge of the town. She had not prepared for this one. You came all this way, she whispered, voice shaking, and you never got to. I never... The words tangled. Behind her, the riders stood in a loose semicircle. No one spoke. The only sounds were the wind in the grass and the occasional metallic ping from cooling engines back on the road. Iron approached with a small cardboard box in his hands. This was his, Iron said softly, setting it down beside her. From his apartment. Landlord was clearing it out when we heard. We salvaged what we could. Cassie opened the box with hands that didn't feel like they belonged to her. Inside were letters, dozens of them, unsent, all addressed in the same careful handwriting. To Cassie. She picked one at random. The paper was cheap, lines faintly blue. She unfolded it. Cass, I know it's been a while since you've heard from me. I'm sorry. Things got messy when I got back. Jobs that weren't what they said they'd be. Nights that were too long, but I'm working steady now. Every paycheck, I'm putting half aside for you. When I hit the number I need, I'm coming to get you. I don't care what the caseworker says. They've had you long enough. Hold on a little longer, okay? I need you to be stubborn. You were always good at that. Danny. Her vision blurred, ink bled into shapes. She picked another. Cassie, got good news. Found a better job at the shop. Boss is decent, and I can pick up extra shifts. It means I'm closer than before. I talked to a lawyer a guy at the club recommended. He says it's not impossible to get you out early if we show the judge you're better off with me. I need some more paperwork, and I need a stable place for you to land. But I'm working on it. I know it's scary. I know you think I left you. I didn't. I'm just trying to build something that won't fall apart as soon as I bring you into it. Love you, kid. D, another, Cass. You're not going to believe this, but I'm almost there. Lawyer says we can file next month. I've got first and last month's rent saved. I got a buddy and his wife ready to let you crash there if the state gets weird about me being single. It's happening. I'm coming for you. Soon. I know you don't trust promises anymore. You've had too many broken. I get it. But I swear to you on everything I've got left, I'm going to make this one real. Danny. The last letter in the box was dated 2 weeks before the accident. Cassie, got the last of what I needed today. Papers signed, date set, March 3rd. That's when we file for guardianship. It might take a few weeks after that, but it's on the books. I wish I could tell you in person. I wish I could see your face when you realize it's real. I'm going to call as soon as I can. If they give you any trouble, you tell them to call my lawyer. You're not a file, you're my sister. Hang on, okay? Just a little longer. D. Cassie's hands shook. The letter slipped from her fingers and fell onto the grass. She folded over, pressing her forehead to the cool stone, and sobbed. Not the hollow, shocked sounds from earlier. This was something deeper. Grief and rage and love twisted together. The sound of someone realizing just how close they had been to something they'd needed for years, and how permanently it had been taken away. Raven knelt beside her, not touching, just there. Flint stood with his head bowed. Iron stared off at the hills, jaw clenched so tight his teeth hurt. He tried, Raven said quietly, when Cassie's sobs eased into hiccuping breaths. Every day. You weren't forgotten. You weren't abandoned. He was fighting for you in every way he knew how, until he couldn't anymore. They never told me, Cassie said, voice raw. They never said he was sending money. They never said he was doing any of this. They just told me nothing, that he was gone, that maybe he didn't care. They were wrong, Flint said. Or they didn't bother to find out they were wrong, but we know better now. And so do you. She sat back, wiping her face with the heel of her hand, the letter scattered in her lap. What now? She asked. The question was small, but big enough to fill the air. Now we carry what he couldn't, Flint said. We finish what he started. Raven reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. It was thick. We set up a fund in his name, she said. Danny Cartwright Memorial Fund. For you, for your education, your housing, whatever you need to build the life he was trying to give you. Cassie blinked. What? Every chapter kicked in, Iron said, some more than once. Word got around fast once Flint sent that first message about the kid at the station with the last $10. That was you, Skid said. That last 10? That was the part that broke everyone, not the foster stuff. We've all seen that. Not even the money the state lost. We've seen that too. It was you still helping someone anyway. That's what destroyed us. He smiled weakly. In a good way, if there is one. Raven pressed the envelope into Cassie's hands. This isn't charity, Raven said. This is your brother's people doing what he would have done if he'd had time. He earned this for you with every mile he rode and every hour he worked. Cassie opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of bills. 20s, 50s, hundreds. More money than she had ever held in her life. Her first instinct was to hand it back. I can't, she said. It's too much. I gave you 10. Flint chuckled softly. Yeah, he said, and look what you started. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a single $10 bill, the same one. It was folded neatly, edges worn from being handled. He set it on top of the headstone, smoothing it flat against the carved name. This, he said, goes here. Cassie stared at it. That's yours, she said. It was yours, he corrected. Then it was mine, now it's his. He nodded at the stone. He's the reason both of us are standing here. Feels right. She reached out and pressed her palm flat over the 10 and the carved name beneath it. I gave it to you, she whispered, because you needed it. And I brought it back, Flint said, because you deserved to see how far it went. She laughed at it then, a wet, incredulous sound. It hit her all at once, a loop closed, a circle drawn between three people in three places who somehow, despite everything, had still found each other. Thank you, she said, barely louder than the breeze. Flint shrugged. You started it, he said. We just followed. Months later, the grave looked different. There were more flowers now. A small metal plaque had been added beneath the stone with the words, in honor of his sisters, courage. Someone had carved a tiny winged skull in the corner of that plaque, neatly, carefully. Cassie stood there with her hands in the pockets of a clean jacket that actually fit. Her hair was longer now, healthier. There was color in her cheeks that hadn't been there before. Life with Dave and Laura was not perfect. Nothing was. There were still meetings with social workers, check-ins with school counselors, nightmares that had her waking up with her heart racing and her hand already reaching for a backpack that was no longer under the bed. But there was also dinner at a table with people who listened when she talked. A door that locked because she wanted it to, not because she needed it to. A room with posters on the wall and books on the shelf and a desk where she filled out college scholarship forms she never would have thought to ask for before. The fund in Danny's name sat in an account with her own name attached. Maria had pushed the missing money case, and, slowly, some of it trickled back. The club had filled the gaps without ceremony. Every time she tried to say thank you, they changed the subject. She knelt and straightened the $10 bill still tucked under a small, smooth stone on top of the grave. The edges were more worn now, the ink fading. It didn't matter. "Hey, Danny," she said. "Thought I'd come to tell you the latest." She talked then, about school, about the class she hated and the teacher she loved, about Dave's terrible jokes and Laura's habit of overcooking pasta, about the way Skid had shown up unannounced last week with a used laptop that fell off a truck, and how Raven had rolled her eyes but still set it up on Cassie's desk. She talked about the small, ordinary things you only tell family. When she finished, she sat back on her heels. "I wish you were here," she said, "but they are. Your people. They keep the stupid weeds off your grave. They touch your name every time they come by. They talk about you like you're just on a long ride and you'll roll in any minute." Her throat tightened, but she pushed through. "And I get it now," she said. "What you meant about family not always being blood. Sometimes it's bikers who scare the hell out of everyone. Sometimes it's a social worker who actually answers the phone. Sometimes it's a middle-aged couple who did not sign up for this but show up anyway." She ran her fingers over the carved word. Brother. Behind her, engines idled. She turned her head. A row of motorcycles lined the narrow road again. Not 1,200 this time, maybe 20, maybe 30. Enough. Flint stood at the front of them, helmet in one hand, the other tucked into his vest pocket. "You ready?" he called. "In a minute," she called back. He nodded and leaned against his bike, waiting. Cassie looked back at the stone. "You know the crazy part?" she said. "The thing that still keeps me up some nights?" She smiled, small and sad. "It's not the houses," she said. "Not the caseworkers or the courts or the money. It's the fact that after all of that, after years of being treated like luggage, when somebody needed help, I still handed over the last $10 I had. I still did the thing you would have done." She shook her head, a tear slipping free. "I thought that part of me was gone," she whispered. "Turns out it wasn't, and I think that's what would have destroyed you. Not what they did to me, not what they didn't do, but how long I was alone before anyone realized it." The wind tugged at her hair. She placed her hand over the 10 one last time. "Not alone anymore," she said. "You did that. They did that. I did that. Somehow." She stood and walked back toward the bikes. Flint handed her a helmet. It was newer than his, with a small decal of a winged skull on the back. "Where to?" he asked. "Home," she said. He smiled. "Good. Answer." She climbed onto the back of his bike, arms wrapping around his waist, the way she had learned to do, loose but secure. The other riders mounted up around them. Engines turned over. The air filled with that familiar thunder. As they pulled away from the cemetery, Cassie looked back one more time. The stone grew smaller. The $10 bill stayed right where it was, held in place by a small stone and a promise. Ahead, the road stretched out into the late afternoon light. Sometimes, the story went, a child's act of kindness changed nothing. This time, it had changed everything. It had dragged buried tragedy into the sun. It had exposed a system's failures, a brother's love, and a network of people who refused to let the last good piece of a kid's heart be the price of survival. And in the end, what broke the strongest among them was not the violence they'd seen or the roads they'd buried brothers on. It was the quiet fact of how long one girl had been alone. The engines roared, the desert rolled by, and for the first time in a long time, Cassie wasn't running. She was being carried, not as a favor, as family.